Hi, welcome to factoring trinomials using the Xbox method. So let's remember back to what factoring is. Factoring is just breaking down a polynomial into factors that we can multiply together. So we're breaking down a polynomial into a multiplication problem. We're going to use two resources to help us factor. One is the X inside the circle. So that's where I'm getting the X from, or the X box is this circle with the large X inside. We're also going to use a box that has the space for 4 numbers or 4 terms inside. So the combination of the X with the box is going to help us to factor trinomials. Let's look at this equation. We have ax squared plus or minus bx plus or minus c. This is the standard form of a quadratic equation. The coefficients a, b, and c are all going to play unique roles in the factoring process. Let's get started by looking at an example. Here we have a polynomial, 5m squared plus 6m minus 8. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and look at our box. And we're going to take the quadratic term, which is 5m squared, and we're going to put that term right here in the top left box. Next, we're going to take the constant. Remember, we're going to scoop the sign, -8, and we're going to put that in the box that's in the lower right. Now, what are we going to do with the circle? We're going to put 2 numbers in there. In this part of the circle, we're going to put the product of a times c. So the product of a times c is going to be 5 times -8, or -40. Let's see, that doesn't look very good. Let's see if I can change it. Okay. Now, what are we going to put in the plus part of the x? We're going to put the 6m in that part, or just the 6. So we're going to put the coefficient of the linear term, which is just going to be positive 6. Now, at this point, we have these 2 open sectors. And what we need to do is we need to find what those sectors are by trying to figure this out. We're trying to locate a magic pair, identify a magic pair. 2 factors that multiply to -4 but add to positive 6. So I can figure that out in my head because I know that the product of 10 times -4 is -40. And when we add 10 plus -4, we get positive 6. So let's go ahead and write those in our circle. So we're going to have 10 here and -4 here. So again, 10 times -4 is -40. 10 plus -4 is positive 6. So these 2 numbers, the 10 and the -4, when they're added together, they're going to equal 6, which is our middleman, or our linear term in a quadratic equation. All right, so what do we do next? Well, let's go ahead and take these numbers in our magic pair. Remember, our magic pair is 10 and -4. And place them in the chart. It doesn't matter which spot you put them in, but you need to add the variable next to them. So we're going to have a 10m here and -4m here. So if you combined all of these like terms, you would have 5m squared, 10 plus -4 is positive 6 minus 8. So this looks like the chart method when we were trying to figure out what the product of 2 binomials was. When you combine all of these terms inside the box, you get the original trinomial. But what we're trying to do is figure out what are the factors of the trinomial, or what two binomials could I multiply together and get this trinomial, 5m squared plus 6m minus 8. So what we're going to do at this point is look at this chart in two different ways. We're going to look at the chart horizontally, or going across, and then we're going to look at the chart going up and down, or vertically. What we're going to do is we're going to factor each row and factor each column. So let's see what that looks like. Let's factor the first row. So if you look at 5m squared and 10m, I see the factor of 5 and m as being common to both 5m squared and 10m. In the bottom one, negative 4m and negative 8, I see 4 as being a common factor for both. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for the column. We have 5m squared and negative 4m. Well, for that one, the only commonality I see is just m to the first power. And 10 and negative 8, the only common factor that I would see would be 2. So we have m and 2 going across our columns, and 5m and 4 for our rows. So what we need to do is just double check this and make sure that our signs are right. You never want to end this until we've looked at the signs. So 5m plus m is 5m squared, so I'm okay with that. 5m times 2 is 10m, so I'm okay with that. 4 times m is not negative 4. So we need to make the sign of this 4 negative. Now let's see what happens here. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. So I agree with all of my terms in the box and all of the factors. So what I've done is I've pulled out the common factors from each pair. So we have each row, 5m squared plus 10m, the common factor was 5m. Negative 4 was a common factor for the second row, negative 4m minus 8. And then we did the same thing going down. So if we take each one of these binomials that we form, now we're talking about the light blue ones on the outside, if we take those and pull them out, so we get 5m minus 4 times m plus 2. So again, if you don't see a sign in front of the 2, then we know that it's a positive number. We get these two binomials, 5m minus 4 times m plus 2. So the neat thing about factoring is that you can multiply those two binomials together and arrive back at our original trinomial. So let's try that. We have 5m times m, which is 5m squared. So that's my f in FOIL. I'm going to do my outer, which is my 5m times 2. So that'll be plus 10m. Then my inner is negative 4m. And my outer is going to be negative 8 plus negative 8. So when I combine like terms, I have two like terms here. I have my 10m and my negative 4. And again, those were my magic pair that created the middleman. So that leaves us with 5m squared plus 6m minus 8. And that is the same trinomial that we got here, or that we started with in number 1. Let's look at the second example. We have 7x squared minus 18x minus 9y squared. Oops. I need to plug in. Okay, so we're going to do it the same way we did number 1. So let's look at our chart. Remember, in this sector of the circle, we're going to put the product of A minus C. Okay, so this is going to be A times C. and then this is just going to be b, or our linear term. So in this example, a times c is 7 times negative 9. 7 times negative 9, or negative 63. So we're going to put that right here. And then we're going to take our middle man, and our middle man is negative 18. It's really important to make sure that you scoop that sign up when you put it into this x. Now we're going to go ahead and fill in our blocks. Here I maybe should have done that first, but we're going to take our a term and put it in first. The first block on the top left, so that's going to be 7x squared. And then in my last term is negative 9y squared, so that's going to be negative 9y squared in the lower right bottom. Now let's go back to the circle diagram and try to work on that. Well, we need two numbers that multiply to negative 63 and add to negative 18. Well, that might be a little tricky, but let's see if we can figure it out. So we have negative 63. Let's start off with the biggest numbers. Let's start off with negative 1 times 63. So that equals negative 63. But when you add negative 1 plus 63, you get 62. So this combination will not work. So let's keep going. Let's look at our prime factors first. What about 3? Negative 3. What number could we multiply negative 3 by to get 63? Well, that ends up being 21. So negative 3 times 21 is negative 63. So negative 3 times 21, well, that meets my requirement. I'm over here. I multiplied those two numbers together and I got negative 63. What about negative 18? If I add negative 3 plus 21, I get positive 18. But I can easily make that negative 18 just by changing the signs of these two add-ins. So if I said 3 minus 21, then I would get negative 18. So that I know now that my two numbers that are going to form my magic pair are going to be 3 and negative 21. So let's go ahead and put those in the circle. Again, it doesn't matter where you put the 3 and the negative 21. You could have put the negative 21 up top and the positive 3 down at the bottom. It's all going to work out at the end the same way. So now what do we do with these two boxes? Well, we're going to put our magic pair in there. Remember, our magic pair is 3 and negative 21. So let's write those in. So we're going to have 3. And remember, that magic pair adds up to the middleman. Okay? So this is the sum of the magic pair. So that means we have to take with it the variable associated with that middleman, which is xy. And then we also need to take the variable xy when we put it down here in the lower left. So we have 7x squared, 3xy up top, negative 21xy, negative 9y squared on the bottom. Now it's time to factor. So I'm going to do that in my light blue color. So if you look at this first row across, 7x squared and 3xy, well, the only common factor that's common to both is just x, because there is no factor of 7 and 3. There is no common factor of 7 and 3. What about on the bottom? We have negative 21 and negative 9. Well, I know that 3 is a common factor of negative 21 and negative 9. And then I also have this y. So remember, if we have a y to the first here, we're going to take that y to the first, since it's the smaller of the exponents, and pull him out, or factor him out. So he's going to be 3y. Let's go to the top. We have 7x squared minus 21xy. Well, on this one, we know that 7 is the lowest common factor for both 7x squared and negative 21xy. So let's go ahead and put a 7 up here. And then 3xy and negative 9y squared, I know that's going to be 3. And then we're going to take our y out because y the first is, we're going to take the smaller exponent out. And over here I forgot we have x squared and x. So we're going to take this 1 and we're going to pull him out. So that's what my factors are going to look like. So remember, before we decide to put this together, to put these light blue numbers and express them as binomials and then as a product, we need to make sure we've got our signs right. So let's try that. So we have x times 7x squared. X times 7x, that gives us 7x squared, so that's fine. We have x times 3y, that gives me positive 3xy. We have 3y times 7x is negative 21. Okay, so here we're going to need to put a negative sign in front of the negative 3. All right, and let's check our final box. Negative 3y times positive 3y is negative 9y to the second power. So let's go ahead and pull off those light blue binomials and write down what the two factors would be expressed as a multiplication problem. So let's go ahead and pull x minus 3y and then set that next to 7x plus 3y. So this is what I'm coming up with as my factored version of the trinomial 7x squared minus 18xy minus 9y squared. But remember I said we always want to double check this by multiplying out the two binomial factors. So let's do that using FOIL. We have 7x squared, so that's the first. And then we're going to take the outer, which is 3xy, plus the inner, which is negative 21xy, plus the outer, which is negative 9y squared. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to combine my like terms, and remember those two are my middlemen. So we have 7x squared, 21 minus 3 is negative 18. And then we have our negative 9y squared, so we can just add him at the end. And we can see that when we multiply those two binomials, we get what we started with, 7x squared minus 18xy minus 9y squared. Thanks for watching.